We're in the middle of a three-part series about belonging, about community, about being together. And last week we talked about the power of belonging. We talked about the idea that belonging is that exhalation of the soul, that opportunity for something inside of us to just breathe and feel seen and feel authentic and feel safe. Belonging is very different from fitting in. For fitting in is really based on performance. It's a performance-based acceptance. Where we're trying to fit in, we're trying to do what someone else wants so that we feel like we matter, that we fit in. On the other hand, belonging invites us to receive that acceptance. It invites us to be open and receptive to that idea that we are present and God loves us just the way we are. Yes? And we named it something very important. We named the idea of spiritual community. Spiritual community does not give us worth. Spiritual community, rather, helps us to remember our worth, helps us to nurture that sense of sacred presence within us, and helps us to express what is already within us, that divine essence of life, love, and wisdom. And so today we take the next step. Today we are going from the idea of receiving belonging, and now we're invited to practice belonging. Everything is in a flow in life, yes? So being in that flow of giving and receiving, this is the second part of it. The idea of becoming that and practicing that beloved community. Once I allow myself to be held in that field of love, that energy of community and belonging, that field that we create here, once I allow myself to be held in that field of love, I become a part of creating that field for someone else. What I receive as belonging, I am called to practice as love, to practice as kindness, to practice as acceptance and belonging and community. I want to tell you a little story. Yesterday, I was at a birthday party. I have three cousins that I grew up with, Wendy, Cindy, and Bill. And Wendy is my age, so she's like 40, 30. So imagine, you remember what you were like 30 years ago? And if you're like 35, you probably don't remember. But remember what you were like 30 years ago? It was completely different, wasn't it? We were different people back then. Culture was different, life was different. Anyway, I digress. So Wendy she's a little bit younger than me. She just turned my age. Wendy and Cindy and I had connected recently. In the last few years, we've gone out to lunch a few times. But it's been so long since they've had the whole family together, and I never met Cindy's kids or Bill's kids. And so we all got together, and it was a wonderful experience of community of people that I didn't know. But they were all family, they were all community. I felt a great sense of belonging just by being present and open to receiving that community. There were 5 generations there, from 2 to 102, I think. It was amazing. Now, here's the point. Is it a perfect family? No, none of us are perfect. All of our families have our ups and our downs, yes? But in this time, in this moment, they all came together to celebrate Wendy. Happy birthday, Wendy. They all came together to celebrate my cousin, and they were all so nice. It was such a wonderful experience. I felt so loved. I felt like I belonged just the way I was. And I could give that love back to people that I never even met. So that's what community is really about, is having that sense of we're home, we're family, we're one, even if we don't know each other, even if we've just met. So what does it mean to be a spiritual community? And here's where we get a little tripped up, because sometimes, we think of a spiritual community or a church community or the spiritual center community, we think of it maybe like a restaurant. Sometimes we think of it like a concert. Yeah. Sometimes we think of it like an Instagram reel, something that we can consume and evaluate the experience from a distance. We can become part audience members, but not necessarily part of the community. We might ask questions. Did I like the music? Did I like the message? Did I get what I wanted today? And there's nothing wrong with being in receivership mode, right? That's what last week was all about, was receiving the gifts. Receiving the gifts of music, receiving the gifts of prayer, receiving the gifts of consciousness, of ideas, of energy, of flow. And this week, we want to look at the other side of it, because if we become simply consumers of community, we remain on the outside of that inner circle. We remain outside of the system of flow. We're simply consuming, but we're not giving back. So community then becomes a product. When we look at it from that perspective, what am I going to get from them today? Well, how am I going to be uplifted today? You might look at it from any community that you go to, anything that you participate in. Are you going there to be a part of something, to belong, or are you going there to simply consume? And the important thing here is simply awareness. Where am I coming from? Am I coming from a place where I want to be a part of a spiritual community, where I want to belong? When we look at community as a product, belonging becomes then dependent on whether our experiences matches our preferences and our biases. We're looking at it through our lens and our lens alone. Spiritual community is different than that. Spiritual community is really a shared field of energy. It is a shared field of love. It is a place where we come together to belong with each other, to belong to that one presence and one power, to be part of that, to feel that presence within us, and to share in that field. And that field is circular, and that it is a flow that is continually flowing. It's created by the mindset that we bring. That spiritual community and that experience is created by the welcoming that we offer, the consciousness in which we pray. It's created by the generosity that we express and the love that we're willing to practice. And so today is about practicing that sense of belonging. How do I put that into practice? Because community is not something that we consume. Community is something that we consecrate. Community is something that is sacred and has divine purpose. And when we look at community and our spiritual community from that perspective, it puts a whole new light on it, doesn't it? It changes our perspective on things. This has divine purpose, just being here together. And yes, the music is fantastic. And yes, the message is, well, it's come and go, but we're here to be a part of it together. There's a purpose in that. Spiritual community is not created for us. It's created through us. We create that. And so there are 3 practices that I would like to introduce to you today for us to help create and practice belonging. The first one is be present. Be present in the present. Number 2, be present to each other. And number 3, be present to the flow. Be present to that energy that is always flowing. Because so often we're separating ourselves from all of those things. We're separating ourselves from those 3 things. So first off, the present. How do we separate ourselves from the present? We worry, we get concerned, we think about the past. We're talking about the service that he gave last week was like twice as good as the one he gave today. I'm talking to my own demons, of course. Be present in the present. Be present. John Kabat-Zinn once said, mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. I was good with the first 2. Non-judgmentally, being present specifically on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So often we're stuck in an emotional experience from the past, yes? So often we're stuck in this emotional experience that we had sometime before that the facts really don't really matter. There's that saying, don't let the facts get in the way of a perfectly good story. That's what happens to us when we are so hooked into our story from the past. Things that we think happened may not have even happened, but we've created that dialogue within us, that story within us, and we're so attached to it. And some of the things are wonderful and some of the things are not so wonderful, and yet we're still playing those stories in us. So the first step is rethinking how we're looking at it. When we're stuck in the past, we're in restaurant thinking. Have you ever been to a restaurant that was wonderful, fantastic, you had such a good time, and then you invited someone else and you went there the next day or the next week and you're like, this isn't as good as I thought. Anybody have that experience? I was in a restaurant like 10, 15 years ago. This is pre-pandemic. Tiffany and I were in a little Chinese restaurant in Palo Alto that we loved. And I think it was either a Monday or a Tuesday. And there was a table next to us, and the guy ordered the fish. And the maitre d', the owner, said, "I'm sorry, we don't have fish today." No, of course you have fish. I just had it last week. He ate it at the end of the week. Well, the thing about restaurants and fish is sometimes the fish doesn't get to the restaurant until a little further on during the week to be fresh. So they didn't have the fish that day. But that person was so determined that, yes, of course you have fish. You served it to me. You served it to me. He was so upset because his experience from the past a few weeks ago didn't match up to the day. And all of a sudden, the restaurant was no longer his favorite restaurant. Anybody have that restaurant thinking in your life or experience that or know somebody who has it? It's easier to spot it in other people. But I tell you, if you spot it in other people, beep, 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 it's most likely in you too. How are you having that restaurant thinking? Have you become consumer focused, looking for what you can get from it without looking for what you can give to it? Looking at it from the perspective of yesterday or 30 years ago. Do you remember what it was like when you were 30? You were different 30 years ago, yes? Yes. Everything changes. Everything grows. Everything's possible for us when we look at it from an open perspective in the present moment. So step number one is being present in the present moment, because anything else creates separation. Creates separation within us from the things around us. We can't receive belonging while we're living in the past. We can't be present enough to notice what life is offering you right now. The gifts of life, the energy that's in the room, the beauty in the courtyard. Did you know that we have a small group of people that have been planting plants in our courtyard in the pots and planting flowers out there? Some of them are starting to bloom. It's fantastic. So I invite you to go out there and look at the pots, look at the plants, and take in the beauty. Take in the beauty that God has created, for we are that presence in action. We have all kinds of opportunities available to us when we come from the present moment, without judgment, without worrying about the past or the future, just looking at things as they are today. Practice number 2, be present to each other. Be present enough to notice the people around you and the person right in front of you. We can't receive belonging while living in the past, and we can't receive belonging or offer belonging while rushing past the person in front of us. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk and author, once said, "The most precious gift we can offer someone, anyone, is our attention." The most precious gift we can offer anyone is our attention. Can you be the person to welcome someone new? Can you be the person to notice when someone's missing? To listen without fixing? To be that peaceful presence in helping someone to exhale? To be in that moment. Practice number 3, be present to the flow of love. Now, in Unity, we teach that love is this divine energy. It's not merely an emotion. Love is a spiritual power. It's that power within us that harmonizes us with God, with the universe, with the allness of life. It's that power within us that we create, that energy that flows through us. That spiritual power is always available, harmonizing and unifying us when we're open to it, when we're willing to bring ourselves together with one another. That power of love draws us together and harmonizes us when we're willing to be in the flow. When we practice community, we're practicing the power of love. We're practicing that harmonizing energy. And sometimes, like every community, it can take practice, yes? Sometimes it might feel a little difficult. Sometimes we have those master teachers where you're going to stretch your boundary and your ability to feel and express love, peace, and harmony, yes? But recognize those master teachers are not the problem. It's our opportunity to grow. It's our opportunity to say, what is it in me that I'm holding on to from the past? What past shadow belief is bubbling up within me? What false belief and narrative am I living in that's creating this experience? What belief am I holding on to that is keeping me stuck, keeping me dependent on what other people think, keeping me dependent about what other people like or dislike? Going back to fitting in, yes? Going back to our restaurant thinking. Going back to, you don't have fish today, John. Sometimes we get so stuck into that it's just an opportunity for us to become mindful of it. What am I thinking right now? Right? What's going through my head? Can I be the observer of my thoughts? Can I notice what I'm experiencing? Can I notice what truth, what data, what fact that I'm leaving out? And then why? Why am I leaving it out? The practice of love and community brings us into that experience so that we can move through our foibles, so that we can move through our situations together, so that we can rely on one another to bring us through it, to help us lift us up sometimes. The spiritual power of love is that energy that lifts us up and reminds us that we are one with the allness of life. And when we're back in that place, we can step into our spiritual strength. We can step into our power of faith, that which allows me to create and move forward and accomplish things. And the power of letting go, of release, of letting go of those old stories. The love we receive becomes life-giving when it begins to move through us. It's always there and present, but it doesn't always feel like I'm in the flow of love, of life, of joy. It doesn't always feel like I'm in the flow of wholeness. But when I open to this power, the love we receive is the life-giving energy. And it moves through us, and it moves as us. When I give to my spiritual center of my time, my talent, and my treasure, when I give of myself to my spiritual community, when I give of myself to the people in my life, when I'm living in that flow, not just receiving, but also giving. So here at our spiritual center, we operate with our donations. We have two sources of income, our donations and the rental of this facility. And our goal is for the rental of this facility eventually to pay for the maintenance of the facility. And right now it doesn't. It supports our operations as well. And when we're giving to a spiritual community, it's not paying dues for belonging. I'm participating in the flow of divine love. That's it. When I come from the perspective of I'm participating in the flow of divine love, I'm giving generously. I'm giving with love. I'm giving feeling free, feeling at peace. When I give of my time, my attention, my kindness, my prayer consciousness, my service, my generosity, my presence, and we give that because life has given itself to me. And so I am simply living in that flow of life in many different ways. Giving is not the price of belonging. Giving is the expression of belonging. We receive and we give. Giving is being in the flow of love. Let's move to our affirmation, Ethan. I am present to the gifts of this moment. I help create a field of love, welcome, and spiritual community. I am expressing the power of love. And so it is. Belonging is a power. It's a practice. And next week, it's a celebration. Next week is UPA Day. This is now our second annual UPA Day. And the whole purpose of it is to celebrate our spiritual community. The talk will be about that. We'll have a normal Sunday service. It's a great opportunity to invite your friends and your family. If you're thinking about seeing us for the first time, join us next Sunday. After the service, we will have lunch. We will have food. We will have singing. We will have karaoke. Someone will be throwing paint, I'm sure. There'll be other kinds of activities and joyful creations. And it's just a wonderful time. Yes? How many were here last year for UPA Day? Yes. Now, by the sound of your hands, how wonderful was UPA Day? Nice. So join us next week for this joyful celebration of this spiritual community. Let's take this into our time of meditation and affirmative prayer.